I'm Scott. You get so excited every time we go live.
I know I am.
We've done it like
excited.
a billion times, and you're so excited each time.
I
Of course,
am.
we were just talking about that before we went on air about how blessed we are to be able to do this and
Yes.
share these amazing people and ourselves with everybody, and then our audience who comments. We appreciate that. Just what a blessing it is to be able to do this.
Yeah, and before we start bringing these fabulous people up there, I wanted to make mention of a couple things. Really quick.
Yes,
we
please.
have our one and only. Sometimes we call Scott, my co-host, we call him Jonesy, and the reason why we call him Jonesy is because of this guy right here, is Scott Schilling. And Scott Schilling is having his other hip replacement. And I had a little text with him and I said, thoughts and prayers. And he goes, thank you. I accept it. And I told him I was going to share that tonight. So I hope he had a great surgery and he's recovering. And he did write the book. That sucks. Now what?
So my man now is a true hippie. Let me tell you, he's a true hippie now.
Yeah. So our thoughts and prayers with Scott. We love you. I know you'd be here if you
Absolutely.
could. And so I wanted to just bring that up. And then we got my fabulous, I produced this show. I have an honor to produce the Find It with Debbie Bettendorf. And she's going to have one of our panel people, Barry Selby. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I'm just going to pop them in here really quick and just say hi to them. Hi, guys.
There we go.
It'll be 2 nights in a row, Barry.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about that. And then we have the one and only, we've got the one and only.
She's doing your trick, Lynn. Nice again.
Bob Donnell.
Hey, guys.
And then Bob Donnell, he's awesome, but he has a better half. And she's just awesome, and I love her dearly. Miss Flo.
She's a 2/3.
And then we have a Mr. one and only, Mr. Rizzo, and he's got his own bob along. And so the one and only Steve Rizzo is here too.
Steve.
Oh my gosh, we have Scott Ricard watching. So thank you, Scott Ricard, for being here. And then we have a celebrity podcaster that does CBS reality show, Linda. She's watching. So thanks for watching, Linda.
Linda, thank you.
Yes, we got to get her on the panel sometime. She really is. She's awesome. So tonight, I think it's. We have somebody else.
We have another pop up here.
Oh my gosh, Becca! I love this man. I love this man. Next to everybody else, there's somebody I love dearly, and he's here too. Yay! Oh my gosh! Hi, Rex. How's everybody doing tonight?
Awesome.
Good.
Awesome.
Well, you seem to be doing great.
I am, because we're so blessed. We're so the amazing people we have here. I basically, with all the people I know, I'm basically one person removed from like a bunch of people, because all the people I know a bunch of people. So I'm only one person removed, and that's just nice knowing that.
Yeah, who needs Kevin Bacon?
Off from another person. Wow.
What's that?
You're just one person off from another person. That's
yeah, cool. But I'm blessed to know the number one people, you guys.
There we go.
So that's what matters. That's what matters. So
all right, now that we finished with 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, let's move on.
Right.
Wait. I gotta brag one more thing before we get going.
Okay, go ahead.
There's this talented guy that did this. And of course, some of us know who Remy is, who did a play about this. But check this out. Check this out.
Check it.
Look at that. He completed it. Scott, that's just
wow.
And he did it.
Jonesy.
Yeah, Jonesy. It's just
nicely done.
For the sober life art.
So that is the 27 Club, the 5 top members of the club of rock stars who died at the age of 27. I know there were others. I know there was
all the people who died at 27.
Pig Pen and a bunch of other guys that died, but Robert Johnson and the other ones. But those are the popular ones, and I wanted to finish that collection. And all of that's coming out because this is September is Recovery Month. Please, if you know somebody who's in recovery, please lend them your support this month. Give them a congratulations. If there's any agencies or anything you could do to help with recovery in your communities, get involved. this is the month to do it. Recovery Month, September. And that's why we're launching Sober Life Art this month. And we'll have a lot of recovering people putting their art out there and selling it. And 20% of all the profits go directly towards helping first responders with trauma, mental health, and addiction. So that's the pitch. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it.
You know,
Thank
they're
you for doing that, Scott.
yes. Just you could see the labor of love in the artistics. I mean, it's fabulous. It's fabulous. Now, Scott brought up the topic today, a fear of change. Scott, you want to?
Yeah. One of the reasons I bring this up is because, again, you guys know what I do. I deal with a lot of people in early recovery who are just trying to restart their life. Many of these people didn't have the experience of growing up. And all of a sudden they're in their late 20s or 30s or 40s, and they've got to kind of grow up all at once. They've got to quit their drinking and drugs, figure out who they are as an adult, and start living their life. And I get it all the time, this fear of change. I got a fear of change. And one of the things I wanted to argue about fear of change, and more specifically the fear of success that a lot of people argue about, I think the biggest thing that we're afraid of, it's not to change into something new. It's letting go of what we know. It's really easy to get on a plane to go from New York to Miami because the weather's better in Miami. But the hardest part is taking your foot off that tarmac and letting go of New York so you can get where you're going. And that's one of the things I want to talk about is that fear of change. Is it more about the change, or is it more about letting go even of our broken stuff? So I guess that's kind of like, I want to throw that out there for everybody. Change is inevitable. It's going to happen. But how you approach it and what you do to let go of what's not working and grabbing onto something new, that's really kind of where I wanted to go with that. So if that makes sense for you guys, great. And if it doesn't make sense, then it's fear of change. You figure it out.
And by the
You're
way,
smart people. You got your own answers.
I hope you guys went all to my page and just shared this right now, because this is going to be an awesome topic. So, so anybody want to go first? Rex, Steve,
What?
Bob? Don't all be shy.
This portion of the show brought to us by our deaf people.
You guys usually tell us who's going to go first.
Yeah, well, I was just trying to be nice this time, but Linda says it's hard to let go, especially the past, as hard as we try. I guess, I thank you for sharing. Go ahead, Barry.
Well, the thing for me, I think one of the biggest things people have is they have a sense of safety of what they already know. What's familiar, what's safe, what's comfortable is where you want to be. So to change from that for a lot of people is almost the scariest thing on the planet. So if you start with that as a basis, that's probably one of the most common things people deal with. And I have stories myself I can share later on.
Awesome.
All right. Somebody pick up on that.
Well, we talk a lot about homeostasis and the thermostat being set, and it's true. A lot of people use it as a financial analogy, but it's true for anything. I don't know how you do what you do with your show. That's really amazing. You move things around like that. I don't know how you do that. That's incredible. I changed the topic. I went off that way, but the point is that I would agree. People don't want to leave a comfort zone, and not just because they don't want to leave it. They may consciously want to leave it, but you have a vast subconscious habitual organism that is conditioned to do the same thing over and over again. And then the little tiny conscious mind says, yeah, I'd really like to do something different, but you've got a machinery that perpetuates itself. So the trick would be to align with the machinery and then direct it in a way that would be useful. And not too many people understand that, know that, or are even necessarily open to it.
And I love, you've said before, Rex, in some of your teachings that, everything's muscle memory. So, if you just want to learn to do something different and start that new habit, that can probably help with the fear of change, by doing little things for the great.
Yes. And one of the things we can do, and with respect to the person who left the comment that said it was hard, this is the issue that a lot of us have. We before we do anything, or because we've done some things and discovered that they weren't as easy as we thought we would, we then draw conclusions about things. So we say, well, that's easier said than done, or that's a lot harder than you realize. And yeah, I mean, that may be true, but to affirm that for yourself, to let that be what sticks in your mind is so if you were to say that's it's harder to do than not do, or it's let's pick a sentence. It's hard to change, and you can say yes, it is hard to change, but what, you'll find out what they have, and what, in other words, what follows that, why. They'll give you reasons oftentimes, and sometimes you can literally go in and say and create understanding or awareness that the reasons that people are using to be afraid or to be doubtful or to think something is difficult are really just old mental habits again, and that they can change them with awareness.
Oops, we lose somebody?
It's amazing. It's amazing,
Oh,
Rex, how people find comfort level in the uncomfortable. And it's amazing how we can do that. And that's why a lot of people look funny at people who stay in abusive relationships and other things. They're like, well, how could you possibly do that? It's like, if that's what I know, then that's where I grow. That's where I am. I can't move from that, because letting go of that is all I know. And that's a lot of self-talk in that, right? Is that kind of where you're going with some of that? You got to learn to give yourself a little bit more of a pep talk into, if I don't try, I'll never know. Or
yeah, sort of. But I mean, what you just said, people are, it's familiar. It's the comfort zone.
Yeah.
And why do you call it a comfort zone? A comfort zone can be really uncomfortable, but it's what is known. It's what is comfortable. And the unknown is scary because they don't know what the unknown is. They haven't tried it. They don't know. It's kind of like telling someone, okay, just, that old saying, God is standing up there going, let go of the cliff and I'll save you. And you're like, yeah, right. I mean, it's an abyss for people. They don't know where they're going to land. And so they stay tolerating things in bad relationships. You perpetuate bad health. They stay with addictions. They stay financially broke because they don't know that maybe when they land, they'll actually have a soft landing, but they just don't know.
Better the devil, I guess, is what.
Well,
it's crazy too. Oh, Lynn, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Beautiful.
I like the way you're talking.
I didn't know who she was talking to when she said that. It could have been any one of us. No.
It flows back. Now Flo Jam's back.
Yay!
Speaking of change, she changed the whole schedule here and bumped Flo off. No, change is really an intense, big word, really. Change your style, change physical locations, change your career, all of these things, change. And then the angle I want to come from is this. Even if you decide that change is what you need personally as an individual to become a better version of yourself, let's say, and then that means that you're on a new path to find your better you. But that change affects all the people around you, and they all have something to say about it, or they have feelings about it. So not only are you yourself changing and trying to be better, but sometimes people fall off the map or they can't get used to it either, because they expect Debbie to be the Debbie that raised her kids and stayed home and worked in the community. And so we have to remember too, when we change individually, there's almost like a ripple effect as well.
I think one thing that sticks out every time with Rex is that, like he says, if we pay attention to our words and our self-talk and what we're saying, that you're always right what you're saying. So if you don't like what you're saying, you have to think about what you're saying first and redirect that, because that, it's like you're driving down the highway. I've said it all the time. You start looking at that guardrail. Where do you think you're going to go? You're going to go to the guardrail. So you have to maneuver through construction and redirect your normal talk and if you stop for a minute and say, I would never talk to one of my friends as mean as I talk to myself. That right there should be like eye opener.
Absolutely.
I got a question.
Yes.
We have this dumb bumper sticker aphorism that says, if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So why don't people change? If they know that, what do you think the reason is that they don't do something different?
Fear of change.
Because that's exactly it. It is because it's the fear,
It's
and
comfortable.
we've got to respect that word.
Yeah.
It's the fear of change. It's the fear. I know a few women in incredibly abusive relationships, and when you ask them, why don't you just get out? They even have a hard time explaining why. They know in their heart,
Yeah.
because the fear of starting a new life is more powerful than the abuse that they're experiencing. One of my biggest topics when I speak to corporate clients is don't just accept change, embrace it. And I could be speaking to thousands of people or hundreds of people, and I know right off the bat that as I'm looking at all these people, they all have the same educational background. They're all experiencing the same changes. They're all going through the same stuff, but I know that some are going to meet this challenge head on, and they're going to enjoy themselves during the process, and they're going to say, there's something within me that could meet this challenge head on, and when I do meet it head on, I'm going to become empowered. Then there are those who are going to go through it, and they're going to say, okay, I'll accept it, but I'm not going to like it. That's not conducive to being creative or productive. And then there are those who are not going to be able to handle it at all.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself the question, why is it that some will go through it, enjoy the process, know they're going to do it? They know it's going to be difficult, but there's something within them that can do it. Some are going to have a tough time doing it. They're going to complain the whole entire time, but they'll finally get it done. And some people are going to panic. They won't be able to handle it at all.
I'm going to answer that.
And oh, okay, I was, but go right ahead.
You're talking about females in bad relationships. I've been divorced 3 times. I could tell you they were all not pretty. So the shit of going, oh, here another divorce, and the one, catapulted to being worse. Long story short, I was stuck with, oh my gosh, I can't go through this again. But what had to change was I had to look beyond what I had to get through and know the other side was going to be better than where I'm standing now. Yeah, I couldn't stop. So go ahead.
But that, what you just said, all comes from first the ones that are able to handle it and enjoy the process, the ones that are going to do it and complain the entire time, and the ones that won't be able to do it at all. It's a matter of how they're thinking about this change. Well, it's the thoughts that they have about the change that will eventually create the beliefs that they have about the change. Those beliefs will create the way that they feel. Those feelings will create the attitude that they have. All of this, that cycle all together will lead to the particular actions that they take, and that will lead you to an outcome. It's all based on how you're embracing the change. And that's the difference. Because when corporate America, when CEOs come into their company and they say, well, these are the changes and you're going to have to accept it. Some people have to move to another state. Yeah. Some people are going to have to take a cut in pay. Some people are going to have to learn a whole new way of doing things. And you're just saying accept it. Of course you have to accept it, but there's a negative connotation to that phrase, accept change. Because in the minds of most people, they're saying, okay, I'll accept it, but this is going to be difficult. Okay, I'll accept it, but this is bullshit. Why can't they leave it the way it is? Okay, I'll accept it, but how am I going to do this? So what I ask people to do is to allow themselves to embrace the change. And when you embrace change, you're saying to yourself that there's something within me that can meet this challenge head on. I know it may be difficult, but if I create the proper thought process, and I believe in myself, and I know there's people that I can go to that can help me, I'm going to take it one step at a time, no matter how difficult.
Rex, you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead, Rex.
Go ahead, Rex.
This is great what Steve's talking about. I'll attack this 2 ways. One was a number of years ago, I created a meme and then created another meme based on it. And I said, we want change, or we crave change, but fear it. And so a lot of us say we want to change, but we actually fear it. And then I made the meme again and said we fear change, but crave it, or we crave change and fear it. So that it's exactly opposite, and they're both pretty much accurate, But the other thing that I think we have to understand is that we come from our perceptions. For example, there are people who will walk into a room and they'll go, wow, this room is just like my friend's house, or what was this, like the exact same lamp that I have at my place, or and they feel comfortable because things are the same. And then another person walk in the room and goes, wow, I've never been in a place like this before. Everything is different. I've never seen anything like this. And we tend to think that because we have a particular attitude or toward change or toward fear that other people do, and not everybody does. I think there are a lot of people out there who don't want to change. They're very comfortable being wherever they are. The change is not warranted nor welcome. They would prefer it to be. They don't want new people in the neighborhood. They don't want to move out of their house. They don't want to have, their taxes lowered or raised because they're used to things being, that's that comfort zone again. And then there are other people who understand that everything changes, and they're trying to manage it so that it doesn't fall apart with the changes that are coming.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. Let me add a level to this, because I was thinking when Rex was talking, Steve was talking, everybody else was talking. There's a level of this that I see a lot, which is, as long as I stay stuck in a bad situation, I get to be the victim. And as a victim, I am not responsible for what's happening to me. The minute I become responsible, I've got to take care of business. I've got to take care of myself. My happiness becomes my own responsibility. Everything else. As long as I stay stuck in a bad situation, then I don't have to be responsible. And I see this a lot with addiction. I see a lot of people wanting to be a victim, saying, well, I can't stop using because I'm an addict. I can't stop. And it's like, well, if you did, what if you did? And the biggest fear they have about that change is now they're responsible. I don't get to blame anybody else. I don't get to point fingers at people. Now I've got to be a complete person on my own. And that is a scary thing. And I think that sometimes that's kind of an overwhelming force. It's so much easier for me to say, well, I'm stuck in the shit, but at least it's not my fault. It's everybody else's fault. The minute that you step up, and that's why but yeah, dog shit or diamonds, you choose.
That's Rex's saying.
Absolutely. It's like, listen, I know I can get a raise, and I can get elevated to the next level at my work, but do I really want that responsibility? Isn't it easier for me to just stay where I am and complain about not making enough money, but not have any responsibility? So I think we have to think about that when we're thinking about change. Change is also about us stepping up to the plate and being responsible for what happens next. And I think people fear that.
It's about managing your mind. When you're confronted with a challenge like change of any kind, first of all, change will come into your life in two ways: by choices or by circumstances beyond your control. And if you could manage your mind, and that's the big thing. People say, well, let's handle the situation. No, it's all about managing your mind. Can you manage your mind and those toxic thoughts and beliefs that are the very things that are keeping you from embracing that change, from moving forward with it? I had to make a choice in my life. I was married for 32 years. Some of you know this. It was the most incredible, most painful decision I ever had to make. And I knew there was going to be major change. And I kept wondering, how am I going to live a life where after 32, 34 years, I was used to living another way? But you have to weigh out the options. You have to sometimes listen to your authentic self, to the higher part of yourself, and know that there's something within you that could meet this challenge, this change head on, and you move forward one step at a time. And I'll tell you what, that's why I so much respect what every one of you do. I've only been doing this show for 4 times so far. And we are a spark that can ignite change in people's lives, each and every one of us. We can't change people's lives. We can only hope to be the spark. And we're giving them the strategies and the tools. Each and every one of us has our own shit to deal with and our own stories to tell. And I just want to say, before I even go any further, that I so much respect what each and every one of you have said in all the times that I've been doing this show, because you made a difference in my life. And I hope everyone that's listening here know that there are ways that you can deal with life's challenges, with changes, just by the simple strategies that each and every one of us are giving. Why? Because we all went through it, and we're still going through it, and we always will.
We are the spark. All those years of being an arsonist when I was a kid finally pay off.
You know what? And I'm going to take that's a great intro to our latecomer here that I asked to come to the stage. He served our country for 20 years. This man served our country.
God bless you, brother.
Officer,
Thanks, y'all.
gentleman, humble, kind. and he put his life on the line as well as telling his own story, Monster in My House. And it's a true story based on his life. And he's been to war. He's done many things. It's an honor to have you here, my friend. I love you so much. Thank you for showing up, because if there isn't somebody that's many times has seen fear and has, of change, but yet you did it, you're here. And so I talked about, domestic, being married, Steve, divorce after so many years. And, we've just all have different kinds of lives, but this panel this comes from just not, it's just real stuff in real life. So welcome to the panel here. Well,
thank you for your
Lynn,
service,
thank you guys very much. I appreciate y'all. And Lynn, I'm gonna bring you everywhere we go. And I'm just gonna have you introduce me, because you're just such a, that's a gift. That's a real gift to be as selfless as you are with that. So thank you. I love you for that. Every time I'm on, I'm like, man. And you I think you did get a little tear out of me when we did your podcast. But look, guys, I think this is I saw this and I had just finished another podcast and I'm like, shit, God dang it. They're talking about fear. I got to get over there. So thank you for letting me come in late. I love, I think, I can't remember who said it for sure. I think Steve talked about embracing fear. And I think that's so powerful when you think of it that way, because I think we talk about self-doubt, self-limiting beliefs, like not feeling deserving, but fear really is rooted in lack of belief, in my opinion. And I think about from times that I made a decision to run into my life and run away from my father, who was literally beating me in the middle of the street. There were so many things that I didn't know. The unknown is where the fear is. The not knowing if you're going to get the end result you hope you're going to get is where we become paralyzed, where we don't allow ourselves to take the chances and the opportunities, whether it's relational or whether it's career success or whether it's leaving a relationship that you shouldn't be in, or doing what I did and running into my future. When I ran from my father and into my future, I didn't know if they were going to, CPS was going to put me at the foster home where I had been abused previously, give me to my aunt, who was like trying to save my life in the moment, or worse yet, now this is 30 years ago, Child Protective Services was not advocating for the children that well 30 years ago. Put me back with my father, who told me he would kill me for being a traitor if I ever told. And so in that moment, when my mind's going through millions of different things that could or couldn't happen, I had to make a choice to run into the fear of the unknown. I believed that I couldn't take one more day of the shit that I was going through. I believed it with all my heart. That belief was bigger than my fear, that every other time before that moment took me back to that apartment or back to those homes where I was being abused. And even when I think of in the military, you got people who will literally run through machine gun fire to save one of their brothers or sisters in arms. And they do that because the belief that they can save them, the belief in something bigger, in that brotherhood and sisterhood that you're going and standing shoulder to shoulder with in battle, is greater than the fear of wondering if you're going to get killed, or wondering if you're going to get dragged off by the enemy. There's been so many things and instances of people embracing the fear, running through it. And if people looked at their life resume, this is where I think people struggle. You get so caught up in the fear and the tumultuous and the tornado of emotions. If you just looked at your life resume and realized, like, holy shit, every time I've ran through the fear of my life, every single time, and you guys can think about it on this panel too, there's not one time in my life that I didn't embrace and run through the fear of the unknown and didn't learn a valuable lesson that got me ultimately where I wanted to go. Yeah. I didn't get what I thought that I could get, what I would hoped I could get. And so belief is so powerful. And a panel like this and the things all of us do, it's not about inspiration or motivation. Like everybody talks about that. It's so fleeting. It's about giving people the unequivocal belief that if they embrace their fear, run into the unknown, they can step into the abundant, the light, and the success in their lives that they've always wanted, but they will deny themselves from unless they're willing to embrace the fear and run headfirst into it.
That's so well said. And one great way to embrace the fear is to talk to it. Acknowledge it. Don't try and go like this and try and put your mind to something else. You confront it right away. I give my fear a voice. I could be in my car and I'll say, you get the hell out of the front seat. You're going on the back seat. And you say another word, you're getting the hell out of my car. I really do this. I talk to fear. If you could acknowledge fear and give it a voice and respect it, because it can control you and it will destroy you eventually. It really will. It will give you false beliefs. It will give you false truths on what's really happening. And it comes in so many different disguises. If you could just acknowledge it and just use your sense of humor, whatever it is that you have to do to tell fear, get the F out of my life. This day is mine. You might come back tomorrow or the next day, but every day I have a choice on how to respond to you. And right now, you're not controlling me.
I love it.
Dude, go ahead, Rex, and then I got
a couple of points with this. What you said, Walt, is very powerful and very accurate. If you have something bigger that you can move into or toward, you can do it and be fearless. And that is demonstrated by the people who do that, put their lives on the line in many different ways. But I would ask this. I've been at gunpoint numerous times in my life. And I got to be honest, I was never afraid of the gun. I wasn't afraid of the person holding the gun. I was afraid of what was going to happen. So, if you square off with somebody and you're about to fight, are you afraid of the person or are you afraid of getting beat up? I think fear is just anticipatory. It is the anticipation of something worse than what's happening right now. And what we've learned is that the brain generalizes. So when we've had fearful events or scary events in our life as children or as an adult, what happens is we have a significant change in our body chemistry and our mind chemistry, and then later this generalizes to perceived threat, anticipatory threat, imagined threat. In the same way that when a child imagines there's a monster under the bed or in the closet, they respond the same way as if there actually is a monster there. And you can come in and you can show them, their heart beats, their palms sweat, they get nervous, the body is changing in response to something in the head that is, thinking that something's real or anticipating something that's going to happen. They're going to foreclose on my house, and I will be in the street, in the gutter. And they go to these worst case scenarios oftentimes. So they're running, imaginary things that may never, ever happen, but it's part of a machinery that just, it triggers. That's what the brain does. So it works by associations. So one of the things that what Steve said, you can talk to it. Another thing is if you ever watched a scary movie at night, you're all alone and you're terrified and you can't go to bed, what do you do? Well, a lot of people try and go to bed and, put the covers over them or they scare or whatever. Just watch a romantic comedy or watch something else. Get distracted so that the last thing that you did wasn't the scary movie. Find something to laugh about and you're more apt to. It's really about directing. Steve was talking about, talking to it but to direct ourselves out of that anticipation, out of that fear, or into that which is bigger than us or more important than the situation here. If somebody comes after me tomorrow and wants to fight me, and knock on wood, this never happens, but somebody would happen, that might be scary, and but you did that to my kids. You can bet that in and of itself would not. I wouldn't have the same. I might be terrified, but I would be responding completely different than if somebody were coming after me. So so what Walt said and what Steve said, I think are huge. There are ways, and the thing that people need to understand is that fear is mostly just a perception issue.
Yep.
We haven't heard from the Mr. Bob Donnell.
True, this is true.
I've been just listening.
He's afraid to talk.
Yeah, that's it.
He's got an intense fear of talking.
He's a fear of talking.
A couple of thoughts come to mind. One is one of the next level pillars is that fear and procrastination take a backseat to a greater sense of urgency. So when you have a greater sense of urgency, fear and procrastination don't exist, like what Rex was saying. If it was something about he might be afraid of, but it was for his kid or his wife's safety, fear and procrastination take a backseat. They're done. So just learning how to create a sense of urgency. The other thought is that the reframing of change. If you talk to Tony Robbins about the 6 human needs or listen to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you look at fear, but then you look at this change idea. Well, we all need variety as well as we need certainty. Well, variety is nothing more than change. We want, like Tony says, we want breakfast every morning. We want to know that we have food, but we don't want it to be pancakes every morning. So if we realize that it's part of the equation of living a life, is having change is absolutely a necessity. I think that we do a lot better with that. The last thing I would share is this whole idea of vision, how you view the situation you're in right now. I'm dealing with a wife that's a very well-known family, and she kicked her husband out because of abuse. Well, the one sense says, I got small kids. How am I going to raise my kids? How am I going to pay if I kick him out? What if he loses his job because police have been involved? How's that going to affect my family? And then it came down to the point where she said, it doesn't matter. Right now, I've got to secure the safety of my family. So even if he loses his job, even if financial hardship comes, the greater sense is that I've got to protect my family. That was a process. It took time to get there. It wasn't just an overnight thing and just one and done. So I think we have to learn that Viktor Frankl's, concept of the man's search for meaning. We have to create a vision beyond that which we're existing in right now. Once we create that vision, we can move towards that.
Wow. Woohoo!
Well said.
I want to just take a moment. We've got Mary Kay, Scott, Lee, Therese, Richard, Deanna, all these listeners that are out there. Thank you for your comments. We keep popping them up for you, and we hope you're enjoying the show. But I just wanted to give them a quick romper room moment and give them a little shout out. Without you guys watching the show, there's no reason for us to do it. Then it's just a bunch of people sitting around like slapping each other on the back. That's not what we're doing.
Can I add something?
Absolutely, and I love your shirt there, Rex. It's awesome. I love the colors.
Oh, well, thank you kindly. I was going to say that
he's having his Tom Selleck moment, is what he's doing.
I thought it was a Don Ho moment.
Or an Ace Ventura moment, I suppose, right?
Oh, there you go.
There it is. There it is.
I love you, Rex.
There is another aspect to this. There's somebody that we know who nearly died of COVID, and I mean, really, really went through some tough time. And they said, I'm willing to entertain any cures, but not if it's from the other side of the aisle kind of thing. If it's just, I don't even want to hear about it. And I mentioned to the person, I think in private, may have said it, I said, I think I would, if possible, I'd want to hear all possible remedies, and they went, I will block you if you ever say anything like that again, blah, 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 and really read me the riot act. And I was trying to say, there may be somebody out there who you don't value, but who has an answer for you. I mean, I didn't, but I'm like, if I were in his boat or her boat, let's do it that way. I would simply say, anybody got anything that I should know that I don't know that I could look at and research, as opposed to I'm only going to take what I agree with.
Yeah, and some people are closed-minded. They're not open-minded as they let people appear to think.
Well, what I'm saying is that people apply that to their own fears, to their own reasons, to their own why they are stuck, because it doesn't fit. It's not. It isn't what I want. It goes against what I believe, maybe. And some people believe they need to suffer, and some people believe they have to hurt, or they don't deserve good things. I mean, whatever it might be. But there are these mindset constraints that people put up that I think, Steve said embrace. I think also hold loosely, to the things that limit us, and hold firmly to the things that move us forward. And it would be a better way to live our lives than to hold firmly to the things that screw us up and hold loosely to the things that can benefit us.
Well said, Rex.
It's just like anything. I mean, you may think you're holding to a pillar of a foundation of something. Come to find out, it's crumbled sheetrock. I mean, like you're miscommunicating which pillar is actually the pillar of the foundation, that you're forming. So I totally agree with that. But yeah, that's the thing is, I think it's sad. That's why I like perception. I mean, people perceive things from different angles and they assume things. And if people would just stay open-minded, and you don't have to agree with somebody, but you might pick something up. And I love in your lesson in your course before you buy your book that you give along with your book. That's really made a big difference for me, Rex, is always saying, look, don't say, oh, I know, because then you're stopping yourself from knowing something that you didn't know. And I mean, it's so important to say, we don't know everything and we don't know what we don't know. And that really has helped my life for sure.
There have been so many times in science that said we know everything. I forget who it was that said that we don't need to patent anything ever again because we patented everything that's been this. There are people who literally stop the process of discovery by saying we're done, we're finished, it's over, and staying open is one of the most wonderful things possible because
you never know.
Right.
Hey, we're not done yet. We don't have flying cars yet. Okay, that's when we can be done. When we really reach the Jetsons, that's when
the Jetsons, exactly.
I want my food cooked too.
Of the Jetsons.
I want to hear what Flo has to say about all of this.
Yes, Miss Flo.
Go Flo, go Flo.
Flo, you're on mute. You're mute.
You're on mute, Flo.
Your microphone.
I was just going to say there's some great conversation about this going on. I just remember when we were talking about our topic, my kid's elementary principal would always say, there's nothing constant as change. And it was right. I mean, it could be a policy change, a price change, anything Weather. Simple. It was always going to be changing. So that just came to mind. And it was like, some of those, I just had to have faith to go in and just embrace, like Steve was saying, embrace it.
I love that. Exactly.
Sometimes
good or bad, it's always going to change.
Like the weather.
Sometimes embracing can take a long time, though. I don't want people to get the wrong idea that if you just say to yourself, you're going to embrace change, because some people are thrown some really intense stuff. I don't know the woman's name, the one who created Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, but her story is incredible because her 14-year-old son was killed by a drunk driver. Now that constitutes a major change in someone's life. And she was devastated for years and years. And she was absolutely losing her mind until finally she started saying to herself, I got to do, what can I do? I got to do something. And she decided to create, I'm making a long story short, she decided to create a group called Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. And she had to go through Congress and senators and so many people rejected the idea, but she was persistent. And this making a difference in other people's lives was the very thing that helped her to embrace this drastic change that took place in her lives. Now, if it wasn't for her, there would be, I would say, hundreds of thousands of people that would be dead right now if it wasn't for this law. So this helped her. The fact that she was some kind of a spark that could ignite change in other people's lives helped her to deal with this tragic change that took place in her life. So,
well, she was able to help other mothers that were grieving just like her, So as mothers,
So it gave her more of a reason to live, and she's living, even though she still thinks about her son, I'm sure, but she has this. She did something about it. That's my point, folks. You got to get up. Eventually, after the morning, you have to do something, focus on what's working rather than fixating on what was taken. If you had a son or a daughter that was killed tragically in an accident, if you have other sons and daughters, focus on them, focus on other aspects of your life. I'm not saying it's easy, but that doesn't mean it can't be done.
Well, you had Adam Walsh, whose son was murdered, and he created this thing. But this is to Walt's point too about having something bigger than what it is that you fear. And so, well said, both Walt and Steve. Thank you.
I have a brother that's 100% disabled as a result of the Vietnam War. What he's going through now, he's the only man in medical history that ever survived that wound. What he's going through now is incredible. I don't know. Picking him up at the hospital tomorrow. He's on kidney dialysis for the rest of his life because his wounds are coming back to consume him. But he has embraced this change from the get-go since 1969. He did more than survive. He thrived.
God bless him.
Debbie was trying to get a word in there, and then I want to hear from Barry as well, because Barry had a very short shot at the beginning. But Debbie, what were you going to say?
Really, all I was going to say was Bob had such a traumatic loss, tragedy with his child being in a car accident and him being behind it. And, you know, not to bring up bad stuff, but I mean, like what Steve was saying, this woman, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, MAD, went and did something. But Bob Donnell, he goes to all kinds of places where there's been tragedy to give back and to be that presence of support and all of that. So, I mean, we have incredible people on here. And I also just want to say that even if no one showed up to listen to us, I love to come listen to you guys.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean,
Barry, throw something at us, brother.
Well, I want to bring it down to a little bit more convenience or comfort or just ease, because the thing about change, we've been talking about some very dramatic stories and powerful, and my hat's off to all the people who've been through that sort of thing. But the thing about change is it can be something very simple. And for most of us, yes, change is constant. It's always happening. But a couple of things I want to make points of. I remember one teacher saying once, if you're afraid of change, take a different route to work tomorrow. Like drive a different way or take a different bus. Do something different, because it's going to make your ability to change easier by incremental steps. Because most of us think we're staying the same, which we never do, because, you know, our whole body, all the cells change within 7 years. So we're not the same tomorrow as we were today. That's one thing. Second thing is, we use a lot of language about the comfort zone. The thing we forget, though, when we talk about the comfort zone, is when you go outside the comfort zone, what's the opposite of that? Uncomfortable. So people sometimes are afraid of being uncomfortable, so they won't go outside the comfort zone. In my coaching and in my messaging, I talk a lot about what happens when you go outside the comfort zone. That's where the magic happens. When people get that in their mindset, they go, oh, that's fun. I want to play with that. So it becomes easier to stretch outside what was comfortable. In relationships, because that's my focus, there are a lot of people in relationships who are afraid of change, as you said before, in many different ways. And frankly, it's the fear of change for some people why they'll stay single or why they'll stay in a relationship past the point of no return. Well, past the point of convenience or love or anything else. So recognizing that change, first of all, can save relationships, but also change can change your state to have more love and more joy in your life, whether it is to leave a relationship or to go into one. So change, frankly, is a gift in my word, in my languaging. So, okay, another short piece.
Barry, no, I appreciate you bringing it back to the simple, everyday minor.
Oops, Rex, you're muted if you want to talk.
I wanted to talk and be muted at the same time, but
that's different. That's a change.
Talking to himself over there.
Yeah, you guys, Scott's frozen.
He's frozen.
Yeah.
He's got like a thumbs up, so it's okay.
Either that or he's severely on drugs.
well, yeah.
No, he's trying to change.
Is everybody back?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. You're back.
You were like this, Scott.
You're like,
Was I frozen?
Yeah.
frozen.
I got thunderstorms.
So
Talk about change. Oh, there you go again.
I want to encourage both Scott and Walt to shave their heads so that all the guys look alike. I mean,
You guys. Scott,
All I got to do is turn around.
no
He
hair.
has no idea what's happening.
Scott's
Yeah.
frozen in fear.
But
Hopefully, a thunderbolt will hit him in the ass and he'll snap out of it.
there is the theory. This is a really interesting thing because the brain works, by streamlining everything, and it makes habits so that it doesn't have to learn things over and over again. And it's law of conservation, least effort. It rules the brain, actually rules the universe when you think of it. But that said, the brain also craves novelty, and what the recent boon of finally coming up with a term like neuroplasticity, which has been a concept that's been around since the ancients with meditation and things. The brain has always been changing. They didn't have the language for it today. But the idea that the brain craves novelty, and what happens with the brain when we're so habitual and so routine that we forget that it may be what creates disease and disorder in us. And they did, back when they did the vacuum tube kind of computers, they did studies about people to find out how robotic they were. And they would follow people around, and people would make notes and the whole thing and then run it through the computers. And they determined that most people were probably between 95 and 99% on automatic, just completely habitual, just running their routine. That little 1% of stuff is the choice of, well, I want pizza tonight instead of this, what I had last night, or I want a different breakfast, or I'm going to get a new pair of shoes. But the rest of it is all run by habits. And so one of the best things is what Bob was saying a moment ago, or I'm sorry, Barry was saying a moment ago. Take a different way to work. I always tell people, sleep with your head at the foot of the bed or across the bed. Because, when people go to a hotel or to somebody's house, they go, I can't sleep, because it's not their bed. It's not, they're not their surroundings. So they get where they can't sleep and they can't do things. So eat with your other hand. If you shave with the other hand. Do it carefully. People have a washing order when they shower, whether they top down or bottom up, however they do it, change the order. Just keep adding a little novelty, take a different way to work, do something different, try different foods, play. I teach people in 50, 60, 70, 80 to roll down hills, and to spin, because when we were kids, we did somersaults and cartwheels, and we did things which actually massages the vestibular system when you roll and when you spin. And most adults do this. They sit this way or they lie down that way. They very rarely, unless they're in a yoga class, or a gymnast, hang upside down. And all of what we did as a child by playing and exploring and being curious and loving change and doing things, we got trained from that by sitting in desks and being told what to do and getting marked wrong and everything else, so that we don't want anything different. But the best practice is what Barry said, is do things differently, add novelty in, do things, because you will end up embracing it by little bit. And it's a safe way to change. And you're not changing everything at once. So you're getting used to it as you go along. So beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. I think, like what Barry said, be okay getting uncomfortable. And I asked the same 2 words, what if? Years ago, I'd say, God, what if that happens? I really want to do this, but what if it doesn't go the way I want? And it's like this negative mindset that takes you down the path of being paralyzed by the fear. Now I ask myself, yeah, what if that happens? When I left corporate America and my wife doesn't work, she's always supported my career. We left 80% of the income. It's been scary the last year and a half. But anytime I start to get in my own head and that self-doubt creeps in, I can feel myself saying, yeah, what if, what do I need to go back to corporate? What if I do this? What if I do that? And it's sliding to the left and negative. The second I start to tell myself, but what if I can impact that one more person today? What if this happens? What if this does create the lifestyle that we want long term? My mind immediately can go from that negative, where I'm paralyzed with the fear, swinging massively to the other side. And so it's like all those little things in your journey and looking at that life resume will give you confidence to ask the what if and then dream. Because somewhere along the line, we forget as adults how to dream because we're so bogged down in the day-to-day. So you got to be able to get out of that place. If you meditate, if you take a walk, whatever it is that you do that clears your mind, and get into that place of starting to dream again and really asking the what if questions instead of the what if questions. It's same 2 words, different connotation.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep.
I'm not frozen anymore. I'm back.
For now.
I can hear the thunder in the background, so I know that my internet's going in and out. So
Scott, we thought you were frozen in fear.
I was terrified. I was terrified. I think it was Rex's shirt.
Hey, I love that shirt.
No, I love everything we're talking about here today. And, we look at change, and change almost has become like that dirty word that we don't like to talk about and stuff. And it almost instills fear from the beginning. But as Rex said, it's fear that we create. We create these scenarios and things that haven't happened yet. I need to know an outcome. So let me create an outcome that's going to terrify the shit out of me instead of creating a positive outcome. We do this all the time. Certainly we climb a ladder and we're just as stable as we were as when we were on the ground. But now we're fearful because we're thinking about every possible thing that can go wrong instead of thinking about, I'm still stable. I'm still good. I'm still fine. I still have 2 feet that are solid on the rung. But, coming from where I come from, the fear becomes not changing. It's kind of the switch has been flipped because I've gone back in my life and seen people that I used to be with and people that I used to run with. And I look back, and some of those people have not changed. Some of those people are still kind of stuck in the same patterns and behaviors. And I can't communicate. I can't understand them. I don't understand people who get stuck like that. And even though I was one of them for a long time, once change starts, it becomes this kind of perpetual motion thing where you just kind of can't wait for the next thing. And if you have too many days in a row where you're eating pancakes every morning, you're like, God damn it, I want eggs. I want, now bacon we could have every morning. Let's all agree on that. Let's just go there. Bacon is every morning.
Everything's better with bacon.
Everything's better with bacon. I got bacon cologne. And I haven't.
What I smelled when I was there.
Yes, okay. I haven't met the girl yet, but I've got
Secret
a lot
stash.
of dogs in the neighborhood that love me.
You probably have dogs loving you.
I got dogs all over the place. But but for me not to change and not to learn,
My
and
dogs
not
are
to
barking
grow,
right now.
that's a bigger fear than anything I've ever had. It's a bigger fear than the fear of change I used to get stuck in all the time. I just and I'll still create bad scenarios every once in a while. I'll still think, well, if I do that, then a low-flying traffic copter is going to fall and kill me or something. I'll still create weird scenarios in my head, but the fear of being stuck is worse than the fear of change today. And I wish people would kind of embrace that a little bit more. Change is a wonderful thing, and it excites me. I've been in relationships where nothing changes and it gets stale real fast,
Can I ask?
Please.
I want to ask a question of Walt and actually of everybody, but have you ever been out in the woods and you were scared? You were fearful of something, you heard a noise or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or in an urban area. What happens?
Mhm.
Do you get stupid, or do you start paying attention more to surroundings?
Definitely paying attention to the surroundings.
Your senses get heightened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, sure. First time I had a gun put to my head, they were in my car. They put a gun to my head, and it was like completely hollow. You could have, bells could have gone off. I mean, it was just nothing. And the very first thought I thought was, shit, Mom was right. I shouldn't pick up hitchhikers. It wasn't, oh my God, I'm going to die, or this is terrible. It was like, my mom was right. Don't pick up hitchhikers. This is what could happen. And then I'm going to ask you another question. Have you ever been doing something and time slowed down?
Yes.
Slow motion is like sometimes you're driving a car and suddenly, something happens and it's like everything goes into slow motion. Anyone have that?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's the brain speeds up. Your brain is operating faster, so time, the outside seems to be going slower. So there's responses that we have. What's interesting with the kind of fear that we talk about, most people get stupid. If it's an emotional fear or financial fear or whatever, they don't have their heightened experience of senses and looking out at the world and going, what do I need to attend to in case there's a danger? They tend to shut down and then run these programs of, oh my God, the house will be closed down. I won't be able to do this. I'm going to lose out. Or if she leaves me or he leaves me, something. So it's interesting that the response to real fear, like a physiological fear, is different. And people will pay to be afraid to get at an amusement park.
Yeah.
They'll be there because they like to be scared. They like that kind of thing. So we categorize things in certain ways that don't serve us. And if we understand that, there are different responses, and your body is pretty darn resilient, pretty darn smart, and you are too, then you can find ways to get from that fear response and make it more productive. In the same way that when somebody's in a near accident, an EMT, if they're hyperventilating, when the adrenaline is flooding and they're all whacked up, an EMT will just have them walk it off.
Yeah.
They're panicking and they're hyperventilating and and they may do something silly, but like step in front of a car. So usually an EMT or a fireman or somebody will take them and just kind of let them walk while the chemicals, while they process the chemicals. So there are things that we can do to mitigate the response that we have. But most of the responses that we tend to have toward anticipated fear is to just get into worse negative self-talk.
Rex, I'm glad you explained that some people fall into the stupid with fear, because that explains why whenever they're trying to run out of the house, when the killer's in the house, they always don't know how to operate their own front door.
Right.
You ever notice that?
Or like me.
They lived in the house since the day they were born, and they forgot how to turn the knob and get out of the house. They always struggle with the front door.
Or you don't know
It's
how
the
to dial
stupid response.
911.
I got it.
And
Or you don't know how to dial 911.
and stop
That's happened a
calling
lot
when you're
of
running
times.
away.
But they're also willing to go into the basement that they know they shouldn't.
Yeah.
right.
Oh, there's a noise upstairs. Let's go up. Let's go up
Let's
and
go find out what it
investigate.
is.
And investigate, yeah.
And run into a room where there's no escape.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I love fear.
So, but going back to the thing, because I was asking Walt about the heightened experience. How do you think you can, to each of us, we should be able to help people understand that and apply that a real fear is something that actually we kind of rise to the occasion. A fabricated fear that we take as real doesn't operate the same way. We should be able to say, look, calibrate between when you're both shitting yourself and when you actually are afraid of something.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that the
give it
difference,
to-
Rex, between a fear that you're thinking might happen and a fear that actually is happening, right?
Well,
That's just what I mean by anticipatory. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but
Because
with some people, a fear that might happen has already happened.
Yeah.
They're living that emotion.
Again,
Before it happens, yes.
Well, there's two times I was drugged behind a vehicle and I was going through Yellowstone and I had a tractor trailer and I was spinning out of control. I was either going to hit the truck or go in the river. So, I mean, those are things I had to let go. I literally, my mind and just be in the moment. But it was those slow motion times. And, you know, it was fear. I just had to let go of that fear for sure and just.
What is it with this group? You got people trying to shoot Rex. You got people trying to run you over. I mean, I thought we were popular people. What's going on here?
I don't know. It's a shady crowd now.
I know. I got a lot of friends. Most of them don't want to kill me, but
But you know,
most of them don't.
Most.
Oh, you guys, we're gonna have to start wrapping it up here. So, any final words? We'll start with Rex, and we'll go from there. Oh, I guess not. Rex, you want to go first, even though the dogs are talking? The girls
Final
are talking.
thoughts.
Well, my final thought was to pass it to say to Walt and to other people about what do you think you can do to help people notice the difference between something that they're legitimately really is happening that's fearful, and then the one that while it may seem real, they're fabricating in their head.
Like that.
Yeah, I guess since you threw it to me, Rex, I'll go first. I think one of the biggest things that I do with helping people through trauma is make them realize that the chaos that they lived in does has effects on them as an adult. The fear of a man, or the fear of being neglected, or the fear of being abandoned does have effects on them as adults and the decisions that they make. But the fear isn't their reality now, even though it was their reality when they were younger. So for me, it's helping them become more emotionally aware of how life experiences is controlling or allowing them to respond or react to certain situations. So for me, it's continuing to build awareness. And then every single time I step through the fear, celebrating that little piece of success, helping other people celebrate their own, like taking some crucial steps in their healing journey. And by them focusing on the success, it helps them take the next step through fear easier next time. It's like raising your life floor and your life ceiling at the same time.
Yay, I love that. I love that. That's fantastic.
Thanks, Walt.
Miss Flo?
I just like how Bob always says, play the tape. You know, go reenact this way, or how you're going to react. And sometimes I just have to pause and say, okay, what is really hindering me? Is it fear or is it something else? And I just really like how he always says, well, play the tape. So
That's awesome.
I love that. I love that. Miss Debbie.
Yeah, I guess I know when my daughter was really young and she had anxieties, unrealistic fears about things, and just like, oh, it's raining, it's going to flood. Oh, I can't get in an elevator. It's going to get stuck. And then we just said, okay, let's snoop for clues. Okay, so that sounds very juvenile, but even as an adult, we can do these things when we have misplaced fear of something that hasn't even happened yet, and more than likely won't. So we did this exercise and we would say, snoop for clues. How many times have you been in a flood? None. How many times have you been stuck in an elevator? None. Okay, so the likeliness of this to happen, it probably won't even happen. So let's not have these fears of the unknown of what could possibly potentially go wrong. That's robbing you of your childhood. Okay. So that's one thing. And the other thing I wanted to say is just this. And I read this somewhere where a lady was saying, I'm afraid to change. I'm afraid to go for it. And someone said, and she said, I'm afraid to just jump and go for it. And what if I fall? And then the lady said, but what if you fly? And that's it.
Excellent.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Mr. Barry?
We've covered so much. For me, the biggest, I guess, the thing for me is, because we're talking about fear and change, so such different things. I've made good friends with change over the years. I mean, if I could list the changes I've made in my life, fill a book. For me, the biggest piece is that if you want to try staying the same, it's the hardest thing in the world. So why fight it? And it's funny because one thing that Debbie said, I have a quote that I've talked about was it leap and the net will appear? And I said, no, leap and you realize you already have wings. Because change is something we can embrace, we can fly with, we can have a great deal with. And one quick joke to the end of this one, because he talks about horror movies and the theater and the house and stuff. For single people, if you're feeling really lonely, put on a really scary movie. You won't feel alone very long.
Nice.
Oh, there he goes. There you go. That's for me and Scott, I guess. Oh my God, Mr. Bob.
Real quick, I think one of the things I ask myself and I ask my clients to ask themselves is, what am I getting by staying the same?
Mm-hmm.
What is it doing for me? And then I ask, what is it doing against me? And when I look at that, I say, what if I do and what if I don't? What if I do change? What if I don't change? And like Flo alluded, I always talk about playing the tape, and I know Scott's really familiar with that. So play that tape. Play it out until it has an emotional, radical change in how you're feeling, and then make the better decision.
Love that. Love that.
Excellent.
And Mr. Rizzo.
What?
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 You're next.
Um,
Did you fall asleep on me? Huh?
No. I'm absorbing everything that everyone's saying, and we are here on this planet to experience, to learn, to grow, and to become the best person that we can be. What I mean by that is how you experience all of the things that happen to you, the things that you label as good or bad, right, wrong, fair or unfair, will determine what you learn. That continued learning leads to your growth. That continued growth always paves the way to who and what you become. Our job throughout our entire lifetime is to become the best person that we can be. And the best way that you can do that, I think it's the number one factor, is to how you confront your fears. And as Walt was saying, the best way to confront your fears is to become aware that you're feeling it. When you become aware, in that moment of awareness, you can challenge the fear. And you could say, is this real? And even if it is, what can I do to turn this around? Who can I go to that can help me? What things can I do? What choices can I make right now that can help me to confront this fear head on? But most of our fears are imagined. We think it's going to happen. I'm not going to have enough money. I'm not going to be able to get this job. I'm not going to be able to support my family. Or I was just diagnosed with cancer and this is it for me. And we're already nailing the coffin shut on our lives without giving ourselves choices. So the key is to become aware. And it's the best way that you can confront your fears is become aware of it and know that you have a choice on how to respond.
And I'm going to have my mentor, my friend, Mr. Rex, one more time. Oh, you're muted.
You're
We got to
muted,
read
brother.
lips again.
I'm telling you, I want to talk and be muted at the same time.
For a change.
I can talk.
Never sounded better. Never sounded better, Rex.
You don't have to hear me. I can still talk. But I think the thing that hopefully becomes obvious to people is that everybody here has shared ways of getting over fears. So, the old saying, we have nothing to fear but fear ourselves, may be the most accurate statement, because, there are different ways to change, to move, to experience life in a different way. And as long as you know that that's possible, you know that you certainly could do that, and stay open, stay open to the possibility that you can live a life without fear. I mean, the alternative is remain in your fear, or remain stuck, or remain the same, or try something different. And what everybody here has shared is how they have either helped other people or themselves get over things that might have seemed impossible at one time. And that's the good news. It really boils down to the Henry Ford statement. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're correct.
Right.
Mindset matters. It is everything. What you think about it makes a difference. That's why I say celebrate everything, because you have to understand that before humans were on the planet, shit happened, but nobody called it bad. Nobody said it was anything other than it is what it is. And now we judge. We go, oh, the bank is doing this, or the weather is doing that, or the politicians are doing this, or our spouse is doing that. And we make judgments, exactly, and we compare and we contrast and we do all these things, and you can live without that. You can honestly, accurately live without that. There are people, some you may even know, who suspend that learned capacity to judge and thereby create their own pain, and to live by suspending that and go, it is what it is. And then assign their own meaning to it. It was Viktor Frankl was mentioned. Assign your own meaning to it as opposed to accepting it, so that instead of the circumstances dictating you dictate the circumstances. And anything is possible. And people here on this panel have demonstrated that, to themselves, to others. And I think that as we leave, people should leave hopeful that they can learn to do anything that they want to do, and they can be better tomorrow than they were today or yesterday, if they only give themselves the opportunity and chance to do that.
Thank you, Rex.
Absolutely.
Steven Sikes, one of my mentors, and I just love him. And Bob Donnell. We got Scott Jones here. We got Flo Mina, Debbie Bettendorf, Walt McKinley, Barry Selby, Steve Rizzo, and myself. This has been a great show. Scott, anything in closing?
It's just a reminder to me that I don't have to go buy a book about fear. I don't have to go ask somebody else. If I have the capacity to look back on my life and realize I'm still standing, I've got experiential evidence that anything I'm brought to, I'll get through. I was terrified of eating broccoli. My parents made me do that. It didn't kill me. I was terrified of the first day of school. I was terrified of my first kiss with a girl. I was terrified of the first time I had to dance in front of people. I was terrified of the first time I had to sing on stage. I was terrified of many things in my life. Sheer terror. I was terrified each time I got married, and it got worse each time, trust me. I was terrified of these things.
And we live to tell.
But I'm still standing. I've got experience. We all have experiential evidence that we're made to get through change and to actually thrive. And what you'll learn is it's like swimming with a riptide. If I try to swim against that change and against that fear, I'm going to tire out. I'm going to drown myself. But if I just kind of go with the flow, no offense, Flo, if I just go with the flow and allow myself to just ride the wave of whatever change is coming, I know I'm going to be okay, because I'm still okay. I shouldn't be by all rights. I mean, all of us have had experiences, whether it's a motorcycle accident I have, or a suicide I attempted, or the drugs and the alcohol that I consumed. I'm still here. So really, fear for me is simply a way, if I look at it and I say, this is a bullshit way for me not to get off my ass and do something, I know I'm going to be okay. Just go do it and walk with it. And the fear dissipates. And like Rex said so eloquently over and over again tonight, once you're inside of it, that fear becomes something different. It becomes your motivator. It becomes the thing that wakes you up and gets you through it. It no longer is a thing that's holding you back. So get to that point. Allow that fear to be the thing that wakes you up, not the thing that holds you back. But guys, we're all survivors here. If you made it these days, if you make it past the age of 21, we're survivors. All right.
Drivers.
Lynn?
I'm just grateful and love every one of you. And it's an honor to do this every week with you guys. Thank you so much for taking time out and caring enough to give to this community of people. So with all that said, we are done. Have a great week, you guys. And if any of our viewers ever want to bring a topic to us, we would be honored to tackle it as well. So love everybody. Thank you so much.
God bless you guys.
Love y'all. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Rex is talking again and lip syncing over there.
He's miming.
It's Rex Sykes says Marcel. Thank you, Rex.
Right.
And he took his glasses off for us.
At least we didn't throw him this time.
That's the way to close the show.
Yes, all right, you guys.
Keeping me safe.